Flap your wings!
Ah! Greetings and welcome to DreamWorks, a DreamWorks podcast. And I'm not going to do the other long part because we lost one of them.
Well, that's true.
A long time ago. But we have Alita back with us today to talk about the 48th, I believe I said. I'm making sure to check my notes. I believe I said 48th. Yes, 48th DreamWorks release, The Wild Robot. I am Jared. This is Jake. And again, Alita, thank you for joining us. Mm-hmm. And yes, the third DreamWorks movie released in the year of our Lord 2024. And I was very satisfied with this. More than I even thought I'd like it. This is...
For some reason, my brain doesn't even count Orion in the Dark.
I couldn't remember if Orion in the Dark was this year or last year, because I know I was on here for that, too. So, yeah.
It was back-to-back months, I think.
Panda 3, that's
Four.
right. Four.
I thought for a second you were talking about the Teenage Kraken one, and I was like,
no, that
wasn't
last
this year.
That's last July.
I don't know. It all blends together. They release these movies too much.
It's kind of like Marvel movies.
That's even more too much.
There are more DreamWorks movies this year than Marvel movies. 3 times as many.
That will not be true next year.
No, I think I know for sure there's like 4 Marvel movies. I think DreamWorks there's 3. So.
Is there a Trolls movie in there?
No. Thank goodness. But yes, our third and final installment of DreamWorks in 2024 is an adaptation of 3 books. I brought up his name and I forgot to leave it up. I feel like it's Peter Brown. Make sure I...
Isn't that who wrote the Da Vinci Code?
That's Dan Brown.
Yes.
1 second. I had everything pulled up and then I didn't.
I think that's the first time someone's mentioned the Da Vinci Code in probably about 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
Peter Brown. Okay, so Peter Brown has written a trilogy of books about the wild robot. One of us here will bring it up that he's currently reading it. And
I think you just kind of
you'll
spoiled. I'm reading the trilogy.
Yeah. Ooh, that's nice.
And
how is it so far?
It's very like the movie, actually.
So good. Yeah. Right.
So that will give us another perspective in the future on that. I'm interested to hear your thoughts when you finish. We're not sure how much of the books are in this one movie. As of like yesterday or the day before of recording this, they announced there's going to be a sequel.
Okay.
It was said by Chris Sanders, the director. So we'll see if that's more of the books. But
it surprises me that it's made enough money to get a sequel. I haven't heard a lot of hype around it.
I think it's been doing fairly well. It's not going to do.
Sanders directed
Lilo and Stitch.
I was going to say
The Croods.
Lilo and Stitch
is he going to direct a live-action Lilo and Stitch? This is completely off.
I don't know. I got to check on that too because I know Chris Sanders also did another. He might have done How to Train Your Dragon.
I was going to say because I feel like the design for Toothless was similar to the design for Stitch, right?
Yeah, and you can tell. And then he also did the Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford. He also directed that.
That's right.
2020 movie.
You made a joke about that in your review, didn't you?
Nor know much about it, so.
I think I just brought it up.
Did I read someone on Letterboxd that made a joke about that?
Probably. I don't think I put too many jokes into what I wrote, but yeah, How to Train Your Dragon, Lilo and Stitch, The Croods, The Call of the Wild, and now The Wild Robot.
Actually, those are all really solid movies, except for The Call of the
Wild. Yeah. To start off with Lilo and Stitch, which a lot of people love, and
yes,
and then How to Train Your Dragon, we've ranked highly on this series.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, and then The Croods we really like as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
decent.
think
I don't think it's as high. I don't think I like it as much as Lilo and Stitch or How to Train Your Dragon, but I feel like a lot of people would probably agree with that. Yeah. So
I actually feel like it's been a while. I think I don't know about you because you really liked the first Croods. I think I liked the second Croods better than the first one.
I think we talked about it and we said that Ryan Reynolds feels more genuine in the second one than in the first one.
Guess what his name is?
Is he the guy? He's a guy, right?
Yeah. It's like
Free Guy.
Yeah, there's 3 movies where he's named Guy.
3.
What's the
because
third
Free
one?
Guy.
Because the
Because
first
there's
two
there's
crews.
two
Oh,
crews of
crew.
Free Guy.
And so technically it's 2 guys.
Free Guy is such a trip.
I kind
That
of
is
liked
such
it.
a
It was
trip
kind of
of a
fun,
movie.
It was a fun experience. Anyways, Wild Robot.
The Wild Robot. So, for any that aren't aware, it's about an intelligent robot named Roz, and Roz is like it's like a brand, and the robots are used for service. They're service robots, and a bunch of them. It's in a hurricane. They get knocked off a ship and land on a remote
Typhoon,
island.
I believe, is what it is.
Okay,
They
so
described it as,
Typhoon, because I'm trying to remember. I'm thinking of monsoon. I was like, isn't that on the other side of the world? That's monsoon.
No, you're thinking of Jumanji.
Okay.
Monsoon.
So a typhoon knocks it off of whatever it's on, and she ends up on this island, gets to know the animals, accidentally kills a family of geese, except for the one egg, and that's what is the bulk of the story is around. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I feel like it's not exactly clear where it's set. I feel like it's set in the Pacific Northwest, just based on a couple of clues that we get later on.
Yeah, that would.
The animal types and the vegetation and the
plus
trees.
where they fly over to.
Yeah.
It's also hard telling because it's one of very few, but more increasingly have like recognized the impacts of like global warming, like with the
right,
like
without it being ham-fisted.
I agree.
So like we don't know what that island is actually shaped like because it's got a random assortment of animals for just what amounts to a peak.
I see. Yeah,
and I liked how instead of it being like hitting you over the head with it, it's there's the Golden Gate Bridge submerged in water.
yes.
Yeah,
Look at how like there's kind of all these ruins of an old world, and then humans are kind of in this bubble.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's very like there's ultra futuristic where you see the humans are, and then you see kind of more like the past. It's some ways similar to WALL-E.
Yeah,
there's lots of inspirations I saw in this movie that there was like points where like reminding me of other movies. Like it seems like they
like
threw
Oblivion.
Baymax into Bambi, or
That's good. I like that.
even like Over the Hedge a little bit with like the animals working together, like hibernation, and Catherine O'Hara being an animal mom, and opossums faking deaths. So but there's a lot of really cool things that, even though I felt they were very inspired by these things, it was also its own unique identity at the same time.
Yeah, and you can feel the character in all of the characters, to put it so plainly. Is you can tell there's more to them probably in the books because there's more time. But I kind of wish we had a little more time with something. But there's so much happening in the movie, it's hard to squeeze any more in. And we get enough character out of our 3 main characters.
Bold of them to put a Nick Wilde reference as just a straight up character from Zootopia in this movie.
Where was it? It's been a hot second since we saw it. Where was the?
I'm just saying.
Or
the
you
fox
just saying you're just saying the fox?
The fox just seems very Nick Wilde to me, like the whole time.
Yeah, I was expecting some kind of something gets pulled because the cunning fox type of character, but then now he becomes
also,
a genuine.
Pascal kind of sounds similar to his cadence. I guess sounded similar to Jason Bateman's to me, but
didn't even realize it was him until the
honestly,
credit.
I didn't either.
I've heard multiple people say that.
Pascal, yeah,
he's great.
Yeah,
and his name is it Fink?
But not my favorite character.
Fink? Yeah, Fink is the name.
Fink. My favorite character is Paddler, voiced by Matt Berry. I love every minute
that's the
that he
beaver
was
who's trying to gnaw through the giant tree.
Every second he was on screen was my favorite.
One of those where it's like there's not time for it. I want more out of those other characters. It's a me thing of being like, man, if this was perfect for a show even.
Yeah.
Like you have more time to spend with woodland creatures that have all these great personalities. Because again, you mentioned Catherine O'Hara, you mentioned Mark Hamill Bear, his name Thorn.
Yeah,
another one where it's like,
it was Mark Hamill
I didn't either. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
I'm like, yeah, oh yeah.
And of course, a Thunderbolt. The what kind of owl is that? That's Ving Rhames.
That's a hawk, isn't it?
Or is it a hawk?
I think it was a hawk.
I thought it was some kind of like predator type owl.
It's a predator type bird, but it's I think it's like a falcon or a hawk.
Yeah, I thought it was something like that.
Falcon. Hey, Jake, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt your conversation.
It's okay.
I don't have thoughts. Continue.
Okay. Oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher her name.
Lupita Nyong'o.
She did a great job as Roz. I mean, I think she did a great job. I think she sounds. I mean, obviously, I know her from like Black Panther and stuff like that. So obviously, her voice is different in that movie. But I think it works really well for this movie.
Yeah, she's always great, and everything I've seen her in. She's great in Us as two different characters, and she won an Oscar for 12 Years a Slave, where she is really good in that. She was only like 20-something when she won that Oscar, too, I think. She's a couple years older than you, I think, so 12 Years a Slave was 2013, so she's probably mid to late 20s when she won that. That sound right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just every time I see her, she's always good. And in this one especially, I was like, I wonder how she'll do, because I can't think off the top of my head of another voice acting performance by her, but right away I was like, oh, perfect voice for it. And then the way, and I noticed this in other characters too, the way it's like subtle changes in delivery are how you can see the development in the characters.
Yeah, I think, it kind of similar to what I was saying about Baymax, because she felt like a robot enough that it wasn't like, oh, it's just a human kind of, because sometimes people tend to how should I say this? There are sometimes when robots tend to be more humanized rather than being more like a robot.
So like Short Circuit.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Have you seen Short Circuit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's like that wisecracking robot, right? Is that Steve Guttenberg or someone that voices him?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where, that's clearly it is a robot, and I've not seen it. I've seen clips, but it's like, he's a wisecracking robot, so it feels more human.
It exists in a space between Baymax and WALL-E.
That's where I see that.
But it's also built into. I don't remember if Baymax is supposed to be like a learning robot. I think this.
I feel like he has learned. I feel like in the process when Tadashi was making him, he was learning, because there was those takes where he saw he tested things. So, but maybe it's just the coding that he had.
Yeah,
he was more Tadashi learning than Baymax.
That's what I'm thinking. I think that this did a very good job of learning in the way that an AI would learn.
Yeah.
I think it did a very good job of representing that.
Yeah, and you the animals talk, but it's still the animals sounds. You see the process of where it's no, the animals aren't just talking to her, she's learning the animal languages.
They also never stop acting like animal. Zootopia is a different animal. Zootopia is a different animal, but in a lot of Disney movies, I've noticed animals stop being animals when they can talk.
Yeah.
For some reason. These never felt like they were. They lost their animal natures.
To a certain extent, it's almost like BoJack to a certain extent, because all those animal characters still have animal characteristics, even though they also have a lot of human characteristics too. I will say, one of the things I loved about this movie is just the visuals, the animation.
Oh,
and
it's beautiful.
I want to say just a shout out to animators, because I want to point that out, because it really brought out the beauty in this one. And it was still stylized at the same time. One of the things I always like looking for in animation is how they do water, because it's always such a satisfying thing to see water done really well. And I know water is something that is very difficult to animate, and I think the animators did a fantastic job also animating the animals. The big fluffy tails are probably one of the favorite parts for me, Fink's big tail and everything. These
past couple of years for DreamWorks have been we assume they have an A team and a B team, the ones that.
Well, they have to have multiple teams for sure. We know
if they're releasing 3 movies in a year.
I'm talking about ones that work on Teenage Kraken versus ones that work on the bad guys.
Yeah, it's like Disney did in the 90s with the Renaissance. Yeah.
Whatever team does those really have stepped it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. They seem to take off years too, where it's last year we got 2 stinkers, and then this year we have a really good movie, and then 2 perfectly fine movies. But it's and then because the year before last year's 2 stinkers were bad guys in Puss in Boots. So it's like they keep going up and down, which it's infinitely more interesting than a lot of the other studios right now, where a lot of them are focusing on sequels. DreamWorks did a sequel this year, but like there's just DreamWorks has been more interesting the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I also think that, well, I guess Disney and Pixar aren't really the same studio anymore, are they?
Well, it's an interesting back and forth. That's the light.
Keep talking.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the problem is people lump in Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars kind of into one.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering
thing.
Does Disney pull people from Pixar to work on Marvel projects and vice versa?
Well, I mean, especially since all Disney movies are CGI, just like Pixar movies are. So I'm sure they must be pulling people from Pixar to work on Disney movies and vice versa. But I don't know enough about the background of that to say positively for sure. But
yeah,
it seemed like that would make sense.
Yeah. One thing about the animation that I put down in my thoughts was a different major studio either puts all of their effort into Roz or all of their effort into the backgrounds. I think in Illumination type studio, they'd make Roz the highlight and the way she moves, the way she functions, whereas everything around her is a lot cheaper looking. And I think Pixar is the opposite, where you might have a good dinosaur thing of like the landscapes look really realistic, but then the characters don't blend. And then this one is a mix of both look really good.
Because they stylized it enough where it still looked like animation, but also realistic. Sorry, yeah. Jake, go ahead.
Based on the last couple of Illumination movies I've seen, Super Mario and
I was thinking about Super Mario too.
Garfield.
That's not Illumination. That's Sony.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
The Mario Brothers movie?
No, Garfield.
You said Garfield.
It's not Illumination?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
It looks just like...
I know. Illumination's big movie this year was Despicable Me.
Okay. Well, then based on the Mario movie alone, I would disagree with that, but I think that's a thing where everything had to.
Well, plus it's like a big collaboration with Nintendo. Like a Mario movie hasn't made.
You look at something like the Minions. Those are almost culture in itself now.
Yeah, great.
And they have to focus on animating so many stupid jokes that everything else falls.
Because they know those things still make money.
Well, that's true.
They know it makes money, so they don't try.
Speaking of which, now's the time to announce we're launching an Illumination series.
No, never.
Yeah, because that means he would have to review.
Nope, don't even say his name. Don't even say his name. We're talking about good things today.
Is Horton here? Who?
It's Blue Sky.
That's Blue Sky. Yeah.
Blue Sky.
Okay. Which is now Disney? Yes.
Well, they shut it down, and I think they fired a bunch of animators, and a bunch of animators got moved into one of the two animation studios.
Did Don Bluth work for Blue Sky for a while?
Don Bluth moved to Fox for a couple movies, stopped making movies, and then that became Blue Sky. It was like Fox Animation.
Because he did Anastasia during that time, right?
He did Anastasia, and then he did Titan AE. And then after Titan AE, he stopped doing movies, and then Fox Animation turned into Blue Sky, because then Ice Age was 2 years after Titan AE. So somewhere in there is the change.
Because I think Titan AE just did so poorly.
It did pretty poorly, which is a shame, because it's not amazing, but there's some really good stuff, and despite you have the traditional animation on PlayStation 2 cutscene, like landscape stuff, like
right.
Are you talking about Titan AE?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's still a lot of really interesting stuff, and I enjoyed watching it. I've only seen it once, 6-7 years ago, and I need to watch it again.
I bought it recently, and I haven't gotten around to watching it. Man,
people who used to work for Disney and people who then went out and made their own studios, it's like if I had a nickel for every time that happened, I'd have 2 nickels.
Which isn't a lot, but that's more than you think. Chris Sanders didn't start a studio, but Chris Sanders worked at Disney and now went to DreamWorks. I think he left and came back then for this, and it sounds like he's back there for good. We have to bring this up. The sad part is this is the last fully in-house DreamWorks project. They are outsourcing a lot of their animation, and the unfortunate thing about that, above all the creative stuff, is that means a lot of people probably lost their jobs. I know Pixar just ousted a bunch of animators in the last couple months, ones that had worked on, like Inside Out 2 and others. So it was like, hey, here you go, see ya. And there's more to it than that. It's but here at Off Slate Media, we're always pushing that the animators are the MVPs because they are, and they deserve to be treated better and compensated for their work, and they should not be replaced by artificial intelligence.
Something that just steals stuff that they've already made. So
yeah, and just I was scrolling through Twitter and it was X the other day, and just seeing all the animation posts on people. It was a trend started by an organization where it's like, hey, just if you're in the industry and you're an animator, post, like, introduce yourself, post your stuff, like stuff you've worked on. Over and over, seeing posts of like, hey, I'm so and so, I'm a human, and I make visual art. I'm an animator, I'm a character designer, I'm a background artist, and they post like things that they worked on. It's like, there's so many talented people out there who are getting overworked and not paid what they should be, and then they get let go after all this just because of cheaper options or AI, and it's a shame.
Meanwhile, the CEOs making all the money are just like staying there for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So we always push the animators as the MVPs, because of course animation, as we'll say it again for the millionth time on this podcast, animation is the ultimate medium. And a great example of that is this movie.
Yes.
This would look awful in live action. Awful. It'd look terrible. I just
threw up a little bit in my mouth thinking about
the
that.
The animals would look weird, and because
everything
they're
would
talking
be super dark, because if it was bright at all, it would look like garbage.
Or it would look like gray, or it would look brown, or because I'm just thinking of Lion King, the live action Lion King.
Everything would look lifeless. Although
that's again, it's not the animators' fault. They're doing their jobs.
From the things I've seen about Mufasa, though, it does look like they've tried to swing the other direction on the hyper-realistic, lifeless look.
Okay. I'm still not going to see it.
Yeah, it's whatever. And as you said, or one of you said, that this movie is in between on it looks like a realistic thing, but it has plenty of character, and the more looks more animated, so it's not in the uncanny valley for anything. Mm-hmm. And while you can tell it's animated, and it has all the colors and the look and textures of it, that still resembles something real in a way that looks really good. It's a perfect blend of the two.
It's believable without being like hyper realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, it's just a shame that this is the last fully in-house one. Most studios, they have outsourced certain parts of their movies, but it's just hate to think that people losing their jobs who've worked hard to get there or been there a while, and it just sucks. But if this is their swan song or goose song, if you will, it's a great way to end it, because this really, we're just gonna keep saying it. It's just
a gorgeous movie.
Every single person I've talked to who has seen it has loved it. Like, I have not seen a single bad thing said about this from anywhere. Yeah. Everyone's been hyping this up, and I love when that happens, where not only is something popular, it's actually good.
Yes. And I think the only negative thing I said was that I just wish the marketing was better, which is unfortunately a case with a lot of animated movies these days, and especially ones that feel like are decent. Like there wasn't enough marketing, or there wasn't enough like to get people excited about this movie, I feel like.
And I think it's doing okay box office wise.
I mean, it got a sequel, so.
That's good to hear.
Like, again, it's not going to do Inside Out 2 numbers.
No.
Like that's the highest grossing animated movie ever. That's like, I thought I looked the other day. That might be, that's like 14th all-time ever, something crazy. Like, it's way high up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, this won't do those numbers, but I'm just hoping it has legs where people keep going to see it. I think it's hitting streaming around like in a couple days from when we're recording this.
Oh, really?
I think so already. And because I've seen people go, I kind of miss the days when you had to wait a couple months before it'd come out physically or streaming. Because they got rid of the 90-day window thing during COVID with theaters. So now it's just their same-day releases, and there's stuff that comes out. Like, it's like, oh, it didn't do well in its first 2 weeks. Throw it on streaming. It's like, hey, some movies, take a second. Look at Elemental. Yeah. That did horrible its first couple weeks, and then it picked up, and it still made like 500 million.
Terrible marketing for that movie.
Awful marketing.
It literally is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, from when we're recording it. Yeah.
Also,
that just came out 2 weeks ago. Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. It's been out for like 2 or 3 weeks, and it's already going to streaming. Just
to be fair, not on a streaming service. On
like,
demand.
I was gonna say, it's like one of those things you have to pay for it. But I'm sure eventually it'll be on like, I guess, Big Peacock if it's DreamWorks.
Yeah, Peacock or Netflix or something.
Yeah, but I will say I actually went to see this one in 3D.
Yeah, ours is 3D as well, not on purpose.
Did you get sick at all?
I did okay. It was the only one that worked with our time, and then when I looked at the ticket, I go, oh, it is 3D. So that's fine.
I will say one of my favorite moments in this movie was the flight montage.
Yes.
And that's one where 3D, you really could kind of feel the 3D a little bit, and
the
similar
montage.
to almost like How to Train Your Dragon kind of.
The flying scenes.
The flying scene, but like that whole scene was so.
The flying montage. And this is what I would say, the emotional investment turning point for me, because up to this point, I was invested and I was enjoying it, just not sure, trying to track how the story is going to play out. The scene where Bright Bill takes off with all the geese for migration and Roz runs after him to like watch him go, I was getting a little choked up.
Well, I think she even helped, she launches him at that point too. Yeah.
I was like, she launches him, and they're all the geese they're flying away, and then all the pretty colors, and then the music by give me 1 second. Chris Bowers is hitting, and I'm like, I'm feeling it. And then when Roz, who at this point has been mostly programming and robotics, keeps running through the woods to like see him off at the edge of the cliff. That's when I was like, oh, movie, you got me. I'm in. Yeah. Whatever is left, like, because for a bit you're like, oh, is this about raising the little like, what a gosling? Is that
Gosling,
the?
Yeah.
And then when they do the time jumps, like, okay, we're doing a learn to fly outcast thing, which still is. And then when they go, it's like, okay, how far are we going?
Right.
And the sequence where they're inside the facility happens too.
Yeah.
Well, and I was like, I'm really liking this.
Honestly,
I'm really liking this.
From like the point like where Longneck, at first talking to Roz, all the way through the flight montage to when they leave is really great. And I feel like I had a smile on my face a lot of that, a good portion of that time. And it was just so. And I realized the voice actor of the guy, I think his name's Thunderbolt, the guy who trains.
Ving Rhames.
Yeah, I didn't. He's speaking of Lilo and Stitch. It's Cobra Bubbles.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Well, and you've seen an Arby's ad. He does the Arby's ad.
Okay.
What are these sandwiches?
I first thought it was the Allstate guy because he has that similar.
Oh, what's his name?
Tone.
I forgot his name.
But I was like, I thought it was him at first. So I was like, well, how do I know this guy? So.
Yeah, that's so.
Anyways.
I was laughing at something, but I can't remember. Oh, it's when Bright Bill, after the time jump, when Bright Bill is like talking and doing all the beep boop boop bops,
so
boo boo bops, I was chuckling. I was like, makes perfect sense. He's raised by Roz. Of course he'd do that. Mm-hmm. And of course he'd be outcast because not only raised by the monster, as they call Roz, and not only talking like that, he was the runt, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That brings up probably one of the more powerful lines in the whole thing is the whole... Because they do kind of the lie reveal, and they do it well, of Roz finally telling him.
And they do it early, too.
And they do it early, and it's not a big, like, how could you drawn out annoying thing that we're used to. It was more of they bring it up, which, how do you tell him that? When do you tell him that? And then they tell him,
Be hurt by that, it's understandable both ways,
And they say the line, like, Roz kind of saved your life by doing that. Because he probably wouldn't have survived otherwise. I go... I did not expect a DreamWorks movie to delve into that thing, just like that kind of. Oh, that was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
This whole movie was kind of brutal in its comedy.
I mean, like the Pinktail, or it's a moment where she's like, "Oh, I have 7 kids," and you just hear a growl in the background, and you just like, "Oh, 6 kids." And I laughed. I was like, I couldn't believe they did that.
We looked at each other like, I think my mouth went open, and you're looking at me laughing, and I look at you like, and then. I am okay. And I was like, okay. For a second, I thought they just straight up murked one of those possums. Okay. Oh.
It was long enough that it was still perfect.
It kind of reminds me of, it's a similar joke to in the first Croods, which when Grug is counting, and he gets this big smile, and then Gran lands, and then he just, because he thought she was gone. That's like, so. Another line delivery, and this is the one that almost got me tearing up, and it's when Roz has to leave, and it's Fink saying like, well, how will I talk to you if you're not around? And the way you deliver it, and the voice breaks, and the situation, and I'm always a sucker for goodbyes and movies done well, and I was just kind of sitting there, oh, am I gonna actually cry? Because everyone else cries multiple times. They've been telling me, a lot of people. It's like, how did you not cry? It's like, I got emotional. What do you want?
I didn't like physically cry, and I don't think I physically cried in this movie. But yes, there was a lot of emotional things. I think the two big things I think about are when Longneck says, it talks about how his heart is bigger on the inside. That really got me. And then Thunderbolt telling him like, if I can do it, you can do it. Kind of like being encouraging of him, and not like looking down on him, like for the one of the few people in his life that's like not like looking down on him or rejecting him, kind of thing.
Yeah, I like the thing that Thunderbolt also says, like you can't you can't fly like them. You fly like you. Isn't that a line in the movie?
Yeah,
and he's saying
so.
You're smaller, so you can take these sharper turns and like fly like you. And
I love that they pay off a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Like they pay off the whole flight montage with him leading the group and everything like that too. There's lots of things that they build up to and they also pay off, which is really nice. Even like the simplest thing of like the raccoons like taking apart going after the robot pieces because they're trash pandas. I don't know. They like that kind of. They like dissecting things. They like going in and just rummaging through things.
I didn't mean raccoon. I meant trash panda.
Trash panda.
Is that better?
Oh,
that's the
Guardians
too.
Yeah. Probably one of the other highlights for me is the animal fight scene, like where all the animals come and band together, and it's kind of like I was saying before, a lot of those details that are built up earlier are kind of like brought in for that. Like I said, with the raccoons and a bunch of other stuff, and even the tree of putting out the forest fire is pretty cool. That's another thing. It's like one of the things that reminded me of Bambi was there was this massive forest fire.
Also, the fires were cool because they were not. It really made you feel like you were one of the animals because it did not feel natural. And in that manner, very scary.
Yes.
I really like, when we talk about animals banding together, them going to save them all during that snowstorm, which a snowstorm, another cause from climate change. It's that brutal. Yeah, it's that brutal, and they go out and they keep saving people.
Yeah.
Animals. Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep saving animals, and Roz just there's always gonna be another one. So Roz just keeps going out, brings them all there, and it's chaos. And then they convince them all, hey, we gotta at least just not kill each other.
Like have a truce for this period.
And that's what brings them together. So then I really liked that. That was also, it's like, okay, we've done all the flying stuff, which was great, and then we get to this part. Like, I see what we're doing, and the fight is fun, and it does kind of bleed into this next part we talk about, where the one qualm with this movie I have is there's so much happening, and you can feel from what we're guessing, we'll know when Jake finishes the first book at least how much of the books are in this, because there is so much in that third act crammed in that the pacing goes off the rails because we have to fit so much, and it's already over 100 minutes. That's like the one thing. Like, none of it is bad, not by any means.
It's a little off-putting. I can tell you from watching it, I was just like, especially when they did the lie reveal so early, I was like, are we really almost done with this movie?
And it's like, no, we have like an hour left. And then we have Stephanie Shu Robot kind of play an antagonist.
Yeah,
which
that's
comes
another
in
thing.
really late and is not even necessarily an antagonist because they even say we're a neutral party.
I don't know that you can fault the movie for that because I don't know if that character is in the books. If the character is in the books, you got to talk about, okay, what are we doing here? Are we sacrificing? Do we want to be faithful to the book? Do we want to tell our own story? And like again, it depends on how much the book is in there. But I can tell you that as far as pacing goes, I have a bit more respect for it because it feels like the book. So the book, it's 250 pages and it has 70 chapters. The chapters are anywhere from a paragraph to 2 pages. And it feels like at the chapter breaks, you can I can tell you this is where this scene ends. This is where this scene ends. Oh, I saw that in the movie. And it all happens very quickly. One thing I will say that I was kind of shocked at, usually they take these movies from young adult fiction. This is like first chapter book age level.
I see. Yeah, I mean, that antagonist, that robot, that's another thing that reminded me of WALL-E with the like robot kind of antagonist.
Yep.
But at the same time, it feels like it's one of those things where it's like a setup payoff kind of thing. Where like, yes, she did put out a transmission, so somebody received it. We see that they received it, even though she turned it off. It's kind of like, okay, this is gonna pay off somehow, and it does.
Really, that robot is only a villain because we have become attached to the family that's there.
Because it just feels really late.
Yes. But I will say I like the decision she makes of not just staying and fighting over and over again, but she chooses to go back because she sees the damage that the fight had caused.
Yeah, that is the other thing I would say about the books is that I haven't finished the first one. I'll let you know when I finish the first one. But based on the nomenclature, is that an appropriate word for that? Based on how the titles of the books work, it goes the wild robot escapes, the wild robot protects. My guess would be that this covers the first book. The escapes one is how she gets back to the island from captivity in the whatever it is, the city, the farm, the thing. And then protects is the robots come together and somehow stops them.
And it comes down to the structure of it suffers a little because it's a book.
Yeah.
And we've seen many times in media where books to movies will have structure problems, not for any fault. It's just, it's very hard to do that because they're structured different. Yeah.
It's a different medium. So sometimes things, the best adaptations of books to movies are ones that make changes that make sense for the medium while keeping the integrity of the story.
And this one I liken to how they adapted The Two Towers, where The Two Towers is a bit of a mess structurally.
There's a lot of walking.
There's a lot happening because the way the book is structured is all one story for the first half, and then the second half you go back here for the other half for Frodo and Sam. And for what I've always said about The Two Towers, the Peter Jackson movies, that is probably the best version we could ever get out of it. It's not perfect. But it's still amazing, and that's the same with this. This is probably the best way we could have adapted this.
You ever wonder if someone did an edit to make it more or less match the book?
That would take a lot of work, I imagine, because of how long the movies are, and especially if the director's cuts and everything. But I mean, I'm sure there's some very dedicated fans out there that have at least thought about it.
I just kind of want to know what that experience is like.
Well, it's kind of like
they'd have to insert like characters like Tom Bombadil, right? Because that guy was completally cut out of the whole series, right?
Yeah, and that's the first book.
I
don't know, can't remember.
But I'm not as familiar with the books, but
I was gonna say, Jake, it's kind of like
the
Godfather thing.
Yeah, that's exactly
where it's like
what I was
there are
thinking.
Moments in two that line up for the two timelines for a reason, and when you separate them, they don't mean as much or they don't mean the same thing, and that's why there's a reason why it's structured that way. So for like Two Towers, if you structure it everything and then you go back and do the other half of everything, it would not work as a movie. It'd feel like 2 TV show episodes.
You know, to go on a complete tangent about the Two Towers, recently my Reels page has been mostly videos of fathers telling their baby children that Aragorn broke his toe kicking that helmet.
Great. If you know anything about that, Lord of the Rings fans joke about how the most like known like movie trivia about the Two Towers is when Viggo Mortensen kicked the helmet when he thinks Pippin and Merry are dead. He broke his toe in real life.
Oh my gosh.
Because he's just got like this leather shoe on and he kicked a real like steel helmet. Oh so it's become a joke because that's like the first thing ever, and it's like every time you watch it, did you know he broke his toe at that point? So it's great.
Kind of like
it's a
the
great
whole
joke.
thing of like in Fantasia, the wizard in like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, his name is Yen Sid.
Did you know this? Disney backwards?
Disney backwards.
Yep. It's one of those moments. So that's the context for that.
Did you also know that he's a Keyblade master?
Yes.
That makes sense. I didn't know that, but it makes sense.
Going back though, that's like my one thing is the structure of it suffers just because it's different medium, and that third act, I like the fight. I like everything that happens, and I wouldn't change anything about it because this is the best version of what we could have.
I like the way it starts too, because like, isn't she tearing down the loops?
Tearing down the loops.
The loops.
Yeah.
That the hawk and I don't remember his name. The
Oh,
hawk and
yeah.
the goose flew through.
And I looked at it as
you were-
She's taking down the flight setup.
yeah.
Yes.
And you'd said peregrine falcon. You were right.
Okay.
I looked it up.
Okay.
So that's why I thought someone had said owl. I'm like, is that some kind of owl?
I feel like
No, that was
owls
a
wouldn't be
hawk.
as.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
falcon.
owls wouldn't be as fast either.
It'd be too.
They're too bulky.
Yeah.
Yeah. My whole thing is I don't know animals very well. Yeah. That was my one thing and then I like him going to see her. It's a good ending. And
Yes.
it happens a minute after they say goodbye though. It feels like it's really quick. And that's another thing of now that there's a second movie, it's like, would this have been better in another movie? They didn't know they were having a movie at the time. Also, it's like I kind of liked the end with her leaving. It's one of those, we have it and I like it. I wonder if I prefer a different way to end it than just them, meeting back up that quickly. But it's one of those, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
And
I
wonder
think
on a
it's one of
second
those
there.
things where because it's kind of like a family movie, right? They want to make sure they have a happy ending.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like one of those ways to kind of have a happy ending, but also leaving it open.
I also wonder if it lands differently when you watch it the second time, because
That's
the
what I was wondering.
movie always changes
Yeah.
the second time you watch it.
And it's hard because it just came out, and honestly, you could barely even watch it 2 times with how like close it's going to be with that. But
How will time treat it?
I hope
And
it
how
will
does
be
it
well.
change when a sequel comes out? Not that it makes the movie bad, but when there's more, it always kind of changes the overall picture of the story.
It does also kind of hinge on like what parts of the story are like, depending on if they end up getting a trilogy, how they want to structure it as compared to the source material. So like, if it is all 3 books jammed into one movie, and then they decide to try to like continue the story, it changes it. But if it's just that first book and they can tell that second story, I think it reflects better on the first movie than if it's all 3 and they try to go off on their own.
Yeah. It just all depends on what the second movie will be, and it will be multiple years before that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
I like the scene where Roz is, like off in the chair, and Bright Bill is like crying.
Yeah.
Like, great scene. Again, there's so much happening, and it's so quickly paced. It gets the downtime it deserves, but it's like little more cushion because then it's go again.
right.
That's probably the whole movie is it could use a little more cushion, but because there's so much to cover, we're constantly, and that's why like the other animals don't get as much time to shine, because we already have 3 very good main characters, and then just there's no time.
Yeah.
And that's like my only, and that's like nitpicking something that I really like and that everyone is really liking.
Yeah. I think, again, kind of going back to what you were saying about like the scene where he's sitting on it, like kind of like her chest, like kind of
Yep, it's that moment I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, and then also it kind of, and there's a phrase that you were talking about that you really liked of like where like your heart, like it's, what is the phrase? Like she's talking like from, or she's talking from a different place, or what is it? She's like feeling from a different place or thinking from a different place. I
or
can't
something.
Remember. Something like that.
I think he might have brought that up. I don't think that was me.
I can't remember because it's from the story that Fink tells near the beginning, where it's like, because she's questioning something like, how does she know? Oh, she knows. How does she know? How could she hear me? That's what it is. She hears from a different place or something like that. So, and it's like, and so I like that the story is just a very nice story, and it kind of comes into play later on. There's so many things I like because there's so many things that, like I said, get set up and a payoff, set up and a payoff, all these little details that really tie together really well.
Yeah, it's just so good.
It is very good.
Was not expecting it to be as good as this. I expected it to be good. I was kind of blown away.
What's the song from it?
Song? Oh, it's weird because I think it's called Touch the Sky or Kiss the Sky or something like that, which made me think of Brave because I think there's a song with the same title in it.
I don't want to be reminded of Brave too often.
It has its moments, but I do.
It's pretty.
It could have been better. I'm very sad about how things went down for Brave. That's all
yes.
But back to the Wild Robot, one of the things I liked visually was the credits, because for the 3D movie, like the credits really felt like kind of gave a really 3D effect in front of like the background, and how the background was all the different animals that you saw interacting with nature, and it looked like you were just like a one big tree as you were scrolling down. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Oh, and we got to mention the little hug scene too. At the end, I was getting a little. When they're all hugging her. Right after the fire gets put out, and it's like the shot, like all of them around her. And she,
yeah, that was really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I want to see it again.
Mm-hmm. And then they made like a little like wooden like picture.
Yeah.
With it of it. It was very cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about the part I laughed the hardest at. Railguns for geese. I'm sorry, that's just hilarious.
Because I guess it's just so far in the future that I guess that's just how that's their main weapon now, I guess.
I guess. It felt like Halo there for a second. Like Halo, like someone took Halo and Duck Hunt and mushed them together. I was pretty excited and laughing pretty hard because it was just so dumb.
And I think that's probably part of the reason why that fire was such that like kind of red, almost pinkish color as opposed to like normal like orange and yellow. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Very unnatural looking.
Do we have any other thoughts on the Wild Robot? I know you have your notes over there. Just wondering if you had another thing written down.
I think I'll just say my overall thoughts are this movie deserves more attention and love for its fun story and characters.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see it again at some point. You always wonder. I think certain things soften on a second watch because you're not paying attention to where are we going. Now I know where we go. And this is any
a lot of
second
times
watch.
it's like when you look at all the background details too, since you know what's happening in the foreground.
Yeah. Are we ready to put this in our DreamWorks rankings? All right. So I will scoot this over so you can see.
Alrighty.
So usually we go to the B line. You've done this with us a couple times now, and the B line is right down here at 28. Now I'm going to put forward that I would just launch this into the top 10 automatically.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a reason not to. What do you two think?
I'm okay with that. I don't really have anything negative to say about this movie, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So I know, Jake, you said you like the bad guys better. Whereas I think this is better.
I don't. Did I really say that?
I remember saying it better.
I remember saying it caught me more.
It caught you more. Okay. We're going to the top 10, so it's like we're starting at 10. So
bad guys.
That's right here. Okay. I think Wild Robot's better than Shrek.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say that.
I think it's better than Hidden World.
I think it's better than Hidden World.
Yeah.
I think it's
better than Kung Fu Panda. I think I love Megamind. I remember now we're in the. I love these. I would put it over Megamind.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
put it over Shrek 2 as
I would
well.
put it over Shrek 2 as well.
Really?
I think I would.
I did not get choked up at all at Shrek 2.
You have a
I
Shrek
think
bias too, remember.
Shrek
Don't
2
forget
has a
that.
really high, but I think there's also moments in Shrek 2 where it's like,
I think
So-
for Shrek 2, that's in an era for DreamWorks where they're still kind of trying to find their heart. I think they know where it is now, and I think they play that much better in more recent movies.
I think this is where I stop, though. I don't think it's better than How to Train Your Dragon as of watching it once, being out for 2 weeks.
yeah.
But I think I stop at 5.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's hard to go really high on something that just came out. But also, I do think, like, How to Train Your Dragon, other than having almost 15 years to sit, I would say is better. But, again, I've seen that multiple times.
I agree. Honestly, the How to Train Your Dragon has, kind of like what Jake was saying. It's like they really were able to kind of find their heart with around that time with How to Train Your Dragon and stuff like that in that franchise. And
So we are in agreement. We're putting it at 5th.
Yes. I do have a question about our top 10, though. 'Cause
Okay.
I look at it.
Yeah.
Don't look at it that often. How did The Hidden World get number 8?
I was just thinking that. We
that
ranked
does
these
seem
like
kind of-
two
does
years
seem
ago,
weird.
2.5 years ago.
That does seem weird that it's so high. Like I get you. You were talking about how you really love goodbyes in movies, so maybe that's part of the reason why.
I think that's why I
think
would have
it's
fought
because-
for
yeah.
it pretty hard.
And I think it has the best villain of the 3 movies, since the first one's villain isn't really a villain, it's his dad. And the second one's villain is menacing, but his plan is kind of dumb. Whereas the third one, he's menacing and he's really smart. And I think Grimmel doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Because he's frustrating too.
Yeah.
Like
And he could easily take them out. He just chooses. He's like toying with them.
Yeah.
Like I saw. I don't remember putting that in the top 10. But again, that's 2.5 years ago. And now that we've talked about how does time treat movies and these movies, it's like 2.5 years ago we put it in the top 10. Right now, I don't think it'd be in the top 10 if we ranked it right now. Especially, I mean, you're here now, and if we ranked them with you, it would be a completely different ranking.
Yeah.
Just because different people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that will go 5th.
And
that will
I saw
not.
you had a Dickie column too, so
Yeah.
that's also the thing. Dickie was there back then, so he has his own opinions on
Yeah,
different
I
things.
remember the epic discussion of what's better, How to Train Your Dragon 2 or Prince of Egypt.
Oh my gosh, that was exhausting.
Did
you ever watch
Egypt
that?
Is better.
Yes.
Objectively.
Yeah. Whole thing. Don't need to go back and do it.
I don't know if I watched that one or not, but
I will just say that as we were doing it, it felt like Jared put that at number 1 and just would not consider anything else. And
honestly, I think
while
he's
I
kind of right for it.
while I agree with him, at the time it was frustrating to even just be unwilling to consider it.
True.
It's because I believe it to be a country mile better than anything else they've ever made.
Yeah. Also that.
That's why. I understand the
it is the
frustration, but it's like in my head, it's like, oh, it's not even close.
Again,
not even
it's
close.
not a I disagree with you. It's a and
Like how you discuss it, I guess.
and you know very well that when Dickie's over here, I take a different mood than when you're over here.
That is true. But that was exhausting. It was fun, and we have this list, and it'd be much different if we did it now. It's just what time does.
If you have 3 or 4 hours, go check out the video.
Yeah, it's
about 3 hours.
Yeah,
So
it's a
that's
fun
the
time.
ranking one you're talking about.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 3.5 hours, something like that.
Good.
But it's fun because you get to, we're poking fun at each other. I can't write with chalk very well.
It's also
That's not my writing up
edited
there. That's
differently.
Dickie. We put Dickie up there because I'm like, I'm not doing the writing again. I can't. Yeah. Anyway, Wild Robot is going in at number 5. It knocks the Bad Guys out of the top 10, unfortunately. But again, I think I would put Bad Guys above The Hidden World at this point.
Where's Puss in Boots' Last Wish in there?
Much lower than you would have liked. I remember you bringing
I
up.
feel like it was.
It's 21st. What now?
That's
22nd.
one movie that I feel like people have been very kind to over time.
is that
like,
above
people
the
still
that
love
is
it.
above the B line?
Yeah.
People love The Last Wish, and I
Oh,
think
they
I kind
do.
of agree to a certain extent. I think it's a very good.
It's
movie.
good.
I like
Do
it a
you?
lot more than the first one.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
not
the first one's
even
kind of
close.
just
Yeah. Yeah. But yes, everyone, that was our discussion on the Wild Robot. We discussed how the animation industry is going now, and because it's in turmoil, and we hope things improve. This was the last, again, in-house fully in-house DreamWorks movie, which is a very sad thing. They just celebrated their 30th anniversary, which means DreamWorks is the same age as me. I'm old. And then, we put it at number 5 in our rankings, and we would like to thank Alita again for joining us and your wonderful notes, and of course your vibrant personality.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Jake.
Oh.
I'm going to hand this to you. So if they want to check out more from this series from the past or our other series that we're doing right now, we're doing Marvels on Tuesdays and we're doing Star Wars Visions on Thursdays for our bite size, where can they find us?
If you want to find us outside of those two things, you can check out our Facebook, Twitter, now known as X, our Instagram, our ever funny TikTok. If you want to just listen to us, we're on all podcasting apps, Apple, Spotify, Google, if that's still a thing, iHeartRadio. Are there any other ones?
I think you got
those
it.
are the big
Then
ones.
YouTube.
And then if you want to see our sometimes smiling faces, you can check us out on YouTube. And while you're there, why don't you go ahead, give us a subscribe, hit that bell, give us a like, get notified when we upload new videos, and
Leave a comment.
oh yeah, that too.
Let us know your thoughts on this movie and tell us what you think.
All right. That concludes this episode of That Works. We shall see you in the next year for, I believe it is Dogman, another Dave Pilkey adaptation. You'll also do Captain
we did
Underpants.
see a trailer for that.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I saw the trailer for
Yep,
that.
but that will be next year in 2025. So until then, everyone, have a good one.
Bye.
Probably. Can your knees take another one?
We'll see.
You can do it! You can do it! Flap your wings!
All right. Is that British in there?
Bottle of water.
It is. I brought 2 today.
Is that a Tupperware bottle of water? Because I've seen
Yes.
Tupperware ones that you probably just picked it up just because it was available, right?
I gotta remember how to do this. I forget every single time. Because it's like, I know what I'm doing. You don't want to do that. They don't have health care.
Baymax, right?
Yes.
What is his vehicle?
He didn't tell me. Oh, yeah. What?
Is required.
Yep. What?
It's maroon. Remember that about it.
So you could probably say
I'm going to
red.
call.
I'm gonna say it's Nissan.
Ah. Hope he's not asleep.
He's Nick. He probably is.